Hello, my name is Riaan Blom with the Avaya Serviceability Engineering team. This video is about upgrading Avaya Aura Application Enablement Services 6.3.3 on system platform to release 7.0.1 on VMware. There are a number of important considerations to be aware of with this upgrade. I'll try to highlight the most important here, but for a full list please refer to the Avaya Aura 7.0.1 release notes. First, you need to be aware that for AE Services 7.0, the default server certificate signed by Avaya has been discontinued. This means that applications that were previously able to connect to AE Services securely out of the box will now require additional certificate configuration in order to connect. Please refer to Product Support Notice 004561U for full details on this change. Next, System Platform is no longer a supported platform in Avaya Aura 7. Thus, AE Services customers have three options. One is to migrate to AE Services on Avaya Aura Appliance Virtualization Platform, or AVP. The second is to migrate to AE Services software-only offer, and the third is to migrate to AE Services Virtual Appliance on VMware. Since we will be upgrading from release 6 to 7, we will require a license upgrade as well. This is normally done through Avaya PLDS. Upgrading the license is not part of this presentation, but you will have to get this done prior to upgrading the AES. Also, a pre-upgrade patch needs to be installed prior to backing up the AE Services server if you are upgrading from AES release 6.3.3.4 or older. Please refer to the Avaya Aura 7.0.1 release notes for more information. If you are migrating to AVP or VMware, you should be aware that there is a rollback bundle required in the event that you need to roll back to system platform. This software can be downloaded from the Avaya Support Site. Lastly, please note that for this presentation I will be using a pre-installed VMware ESXi 5.5 host. Installation of VMware is not covered in this presentation. The steps I will be performing in this presentation is Step 1, downloading the required AE Services Release 7.0.1 software from the Avaya Support Site. Step 2, to perform a database backup of system platform as well as AE Services. Step 3 will be to deploy and patch the AE Services Release 7.0.1 appliance on VMware. And Step 4 is to restore the AE Services database backup from your previous AES. Let's get started with Step 1, which is to download the AE Services Release 7.0.1 software. On the Avaya Support Site, under Downloads for Avaya Aura Application Enablement Services 7, you will see that there are downloads for release 7.0.1. For deploying and patching AE services on VMware, we need the OVA media as well as 7.0.1 Super Patch 1. Follow the download links for each and save them to the desktop where you will be deploying the AE services server from. Next, let's look at Step 2, which is to perform a database backup of system platform and AE services. Log into the System Platform console domain. The virtual machine list is a good place to see what release of AE services you are running. I would also suggest making a note of the system platform release you are running in the event that you need to roll back. From the menu on the left, browse to Server Management, Backup and Restore, and then browse to Backup. Change the option at the top to Backup Now. Then you need to choose a backup method. I am going to choose Local, which is going to save the backup file locally on the console domain in the folder location of /VSP data /backup /archive. The backup process should continue and complete successfully. Even though this backup contains an AES backup, we will also be taking a separate backup of the AE Services server. Once the backup is finished, use a secure FTP application like WinSCP to pull the system platform console domain backup back to your local desktop. That allows you to keep a copy of the server. I would also suggest making a note of the following items in the console domain. Browse to Network Configuration and document the general network settings and system platform related network settings. Then scroll down and document the AE Services hostname and IP address. When we deploy the release 7.0.1 server, we will use the same network configuration parameters for that AES. Next, we will back up the AE Services server. Log into the AE Services Management console. I would also recommend to document some of the status and configuration pages from AE Services, starting with the services status. Make a note of which services are online, offline, and so on. Then, browse to Networking and Local IP. This tells us where AES is currently configured for client, switch, and media connectivity. You can also document the network configuration as it appears on AES. Finally, document which ports are enabled or disabled. Now, to back up the AE Services server, browse to Maintenance, Server Data, then Backup. Click on Continue and download the AE Services backup file. As mentioned, this demonstration is for AE Services migrating from System Platform to VMware. I will be accessing a pre-installed VMware ESXi 5.5 host through the VMware vSphere client and then deploy AE Services Release 7.0.1 from there. From the desktop, launch the VMware vSphere client and log into the VMware host. Click on File and then on Deploy OVF Template. Click on Browse and browse to the location where you saved the AE Services Release 7.0.1 OVA you downloaded earlier. Verify that the correct product is displayed and then click on Next. Review and choose whether to accept the Avaya Global Software License Agreement, then click on Next. Provide a name you would like this virtual machine to be displayed as in VMware, and then choose which configuration profile you need to deploy. There are 3 profiles, each with different CPU and memory reservations. Next, choose Thick Provision Lazy Zeroed, and on the networking page you should be able to leave the default configuration. Then click Next. Review your selections and then choose to power on the server after deployment. In our environment, deployment of the AE Services Release 7.0.1 virtual machine took roughly 3 minutes. Once deployment completed successfully, browse to the new server. Right-click on the server name and choose to open the console to the virtual machine. After a couple of minutes, you should be prompted whether you wish to configure the AE Services virtual machine. Choose Yes and provide the AE Services server network configuration information you documented earlier. After the configuration has been applied to the server, you should see the AE Services server login prompt. Log in with a cust user. Next, run the SW version command and verify the release of AE Services that has been installed. Now you need to move the Super Patch 1 downloaded during Step 1 onto the newly deployed AE Services server. Use a secure FTP application like WinSCP to move the file onto the AES. The recommended target destination is the temp folder. Depending on where you copy the patch to, you may need to manually move it to the temp folder. To install the super patch, use the update command shown on the screen. Choose Yes to accept the notification and the patch will continue installing. Patch installation takes roughly 5 minutes to complete. Once finished, confirm that you can see the patch listed in the SW version command. Now for the final step, which is to restore the AE Services database backup from your 6.3.3 system onto this new 7.0.1 system. Log into the AES Management Console and accept the initial notifications. Then browse to Maintenance, Server Data, and Restore. Click on Browse and browse to where you saved the AE Services backup file. Please note that this is the AE Services backup and not the System Platform backup file that you took earlier. Next, click on Restore. For the restore to finalize, you need to restart AE Services. Follow the Restart Services instructions provided on the screen. Restarting AE Services should take a couple of minutes to complete. When completed, this release 7.0.1 AE Services server should have all the configuration from your release 6.3.3 server. You may want to go back and review the services summary to check that all the services are showing in the same state as before. Also check individual services under Status and Control and verify that all your links have come back up. That concludes this presentation. Thank you for your time today. We welcome comments, questions and feedback at mentor@avaya.com or on Twitter @AvayaMentor. For more details or related information, please visit support.avaya.com. Thank you for choosing Avaya.